once upon a time, I worked at this food place and we had a rat infestation problem. And one day we opened a vent and a rat fell out. And I was like, that's Remy right there. He was dead.
R.I.P.
He couldn't control me by my hair.
You have nice long hair now, too, for him to control you by.
Back then it was short, though. He would have struggled. He needed your long hair.
My long hair? Oh, I think yours is longer than mine.
I don't know. Mine is curly or like wavy, so it's hard to tell.
I scheduled a haircut though, so I'm getting a little bit off, just like an inch or two, because it's just too much for me to handle right now. I can't do this. Everything else that's happening in my life, it's like no.
Your hair is the biggest problem in your life right now, pretty much.
Yes, it's one of many, many big problems in my life right now. My name is Brandon, your co-host.
And this is David, as usual, the co-host.
Oh,
I guess.
Interesting. You can also be co-host. That's what it means.
Oh, wait, that's true.
You know, right?
I forgot. Yeah, I guess I was just thinking of like when someone who was a junior already gives their son the same name, so they become like a 2, and then their son is a 3.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or like daughter.
Co-host junior.
Co-host junior.
Co-host the 3rd.
At some point there will just be like 5 of us, and all of us will be like co-host junior, co-host the 3rd, the 4th.
We're gonna have to like birth another podcast out of our podcast, and then they'll be the like junior of us.
Yeah, it's just us
UPC
with like pitched
podcast.
Voices.
Yeah. We should do that.
Like, hello Brandon, how you doing? Like something like that.
UPC podcast for babies.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to be about child media.
Nice. I think that's how we can finally monetize then. We just got to make the next Coco Melon. That's easy.
Yeah, just make it as annoying as Baby Shark and we're set.
Oh, yeah. We should cover Baby Shark on here. Honestly, whole Pink Fong collection. What have you been watching or listening to in this past week? In transparency, this has actually been less than a week since we recorded our last one.
That's right.
So.
That's right. Well, also, in between the time that we recorded the Graduate episode and last week's episode, I watched a lot. I just didn't discuss all of it. So there was like a lot that I watched in those like 2 weeks or however long that was. But this week, I watched Novocaine, which is a movie that came out several months ago and that I wanted to see in theaters, but I didn't catch. But it was fun. It's about, you know who's in it? Jack Quaid. Do you know who that is?
I've heard the name, Boys. Yeah.
He's a Nepo baby that admits he's a Nepo baby, which makes me like him.
Oh,
you know?
Nice. Yeah.
I think that's fun. It's like the opposite of Gracie Adams or something.
Gracie Abrams.
Yeah, exactly. But he pretty much plays a guy that has like this genetic mutation where he can't feel pain. And then he works at a bank and there's a bank robbery and he chases after them. It's like body horror. It's like Saw, but a comedy. Because it's just him getting like stabbed and it's very like you see everything. But it was fun. It was kind of hard to watch, I will say. But it was a lot of fun. What about you? Anything new that you listened to?
Yes. I had mentioned last episode that I had 2 Album of the Year candidates. One of them, I'm happy to report, is still an Album of the Year candidate after listening to it. The other one is not. So I'm going to start with the Album of the Year candidate, Kmoe. Kmoe. He was kind of hyperpop. That's what he started out doing. And I don't really know what to call this album other than like kind of experimental. It's called K1. Not the greatest name ever.
Is it like his first album? That's why it's called that?
Yeah, okay. Unfortunately, which I would have preferred a like real title.
God.
But the music is very good, and I had a great time listening to this. And I was thinking about this, so I've been trying to like listen to it once a day because I feel like that's what I've been lacking is when I like something, I'm kind of like, oh, this is really cool. And then I just kind of put it away for future reference. And then I force myself to listen to a bunch of awful music to find something else I like. But This time I was like, I should actually listen to this. So I've been listening to it, and it's been good, and it's actually been getting better the more I listen to it.
Goes to show you should listen to stuff you enjoy more.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
The other album that wasn't so good was by this week's artist, John Bellion.
Oh, gosh.
Father Figure. This is his first album in 7 years, almost 7 years. And
was his last album before this one the one we're discussing today?
No, there's actually one in between there. But this new album, it just did not speak to me really or work for me. And I had really hoped that it was going to, because I was a very big fan of him when I was younger. And the album's fine. It gets really into religion. And I'm going to talk about that later when we talk about this album, because I have thoughts about a lot of this kind of stuff. But there's 14 songs on it, and 5 of them I enjoyed listening to. So not very good numbers.
Yeah, but at least like it wasn't a total flop in the sense that you did like some of them, but still, that's not the best. That's not the best ratio.
Right. Yeah. Tonight is going to be New Music Friday in a few hours. That's right. There is not a single release that I know of that's coming out tonight. So I have no expectations. I don't think this is really going to be a good week, which usually happens in the middle of June. Once you get to the end of June, there's one like big album before no one dares to release anything for the next 2 months. So
you just got to hold out till September.
I know. Yeah.
That's pretty much what it is.
Just got to make it through the summer. Is it time for us to get into this week's album?
I think so, because I want to hear everything that you're just talking about. In greater detail, like what you're talking about, John Bellion. I had never heard of him before.
Yes.
You put his album here.
Which is interesting, but not really that interesting when you consider like what you know about music. But true. It is kind of interesting to go into this without really knowing anything, because this is definitely different than what I assume you thought it would be.
Very different, yeah.
I do want to ask you before I launch into my whole I don't know spiel. If I want to say tirade. Yeah, spiel's better about all the information about this album. I would like to hear what you thought about it first off. Like, what were you expecting, and like, what did it do?
I mean, to be honest, from the cover album, because for most of the albums, since I kind of edit the art for our Instagram page, like at least a month before, I see all the album art before. So when I saw the album art, I was kind of like, I don't know what to expect. Like, it's not a typical style for an album, I feel like. It looks more like like a 3D movie or something like that, you know?
Yes.
So I was kind of like, I don't know what to expect. I did think that it was going to be maybe more typical pop, which it isn't. It's very different. But
it's like left of center pop kind of.
It's kind of hard to explain, I feel like. What it is. Agree. Like, I don't know how to explain what it is, or
I think Rate Your Music catalogs it as pop soul, which I don't know entirely fits.
Yeah, when I think like, it partially fits.
Yeah, right. I think there's pop rap elements to it. There's definitely something more going on than just like a pop, like kind of like modern pop music, I guess.
Yeah. Pretty much. I thought it could be just like more typical pop, but going into it, I was pretty much like, this could be anything. So
okay, nice. This album was released in 2016, June 10th, 2016. So a little over 9 years ago, like almost to the day. There were 4 singles that came out from this album beforehand, but kind of not really. It's very hard to classify, because there were 3 songs that came out in 2015: Woodstock, Psychedelic Fiction, All Time Low, and Woke the Fuck Up. 2 of those, you will know, are on the album. One of them is not, which is Woodstock, Psychedelic Fiction. Right. That was kind of, from what I can gather, that was intended for the album, but didn't make the final cut. It's a lot more reminiscent of his older music. From there, All Time Low was kind of like re-released as the 4th single, but also the lead single. So it's very confusing, because that was the song that was pushed to radio.
Yeah.
But it was pushed to radio super late, because the song came out in 2015. This album cycle like started in spring of 2016, because the album came out in June of 2016. And by the time the album was like almost out, like we had about 2 weeks left, that's when the song started like picking up steam on Spotify. I was active during this time on Spotify. This is back in the days when Spotify used to have editors who would make playlists and kind of choose the music that they thought was good, that deserved a spotlight.
Yeah, instead of AI or something.
Right, yeah, instead of AI or whatever algorithm they have going now where it just gives you the music you want to hear. But they thought All Time Low was a good song, I guess. And I don't know how much of that was like influenced by Universal Capitol Records, which shout out two weeks in a row we're doing Capitol Records albums.
What can I say? When you see that round building when you're driving into Hollywood,
exactly,
makes you want to listen to some music from there,
some pop music. So by this time, the song starts like taking off a little bit more, but it's still kind of in online spaces. I didn't start noticing it, like, I guess, breaching containment until the fall of 2016. And in the spring of 2017 is when it had its greatest like peak, and it was on the radio, actually. You may have noticed that it has 700 million streams, over 700 million streams. So that's a pretty decently sized song when the rest of the songs are around like 30 million, except for a few that have 100. So that was really the song that kind of propelled him to, I don't know if I would say fame, but I guess people knowing who he was. The 4 singles that came out before the album actually like released during this time, because the other thing about the 3 singles, Psychedelic Fiction or Woodstock Psychedelic Fiction, All Time Low, and Woke the Fuck Up, is they had different album art. And then it kind of like restarted with all of this art for this album to kind of like bring you into this universe. So those songs were Guillotine in April of 2016, 80s Films in May of 2016, maybe I Don't Know 1 week before the album, and then All Time Low somewhere in between there. I don't know when it was re-released. I'm not able to find a date on it, but I remember it being on Spotify, like remixed and mastered, and with the new album art that fits the album. The art is by David Andinarias Lohaya. I don't know if that's how you say his name.
We're very sorry, David.
Yes, we are very sorry, fellow David. This art was made to get the attention of Pixar, which is why I chose this album.
Oh.
John Bellion's one of his biggest inspirations is Pixar movies.
That's a really interesting connection.
And he loves the art style. He loves the storytelling in it. And with this album, this was like his first big budget album where he got money from his label to make music. He was like, I want to make an album that will make Pixar call me and say, we want you to score a movie.
Right.
After this album came out, I think around the time of him promoting his second album, Glory Sound Prep, he had said that he had met with some Pixar executives. Nothing has happened as far as I know. So it did actually attract some attention, but that was kind of what I knew of him, seeing this art and then him saying like, I want to do a Pixar movie.
Right. That's really, really fun.
Yeah. So when you said it looked like a 3D animated thing, I was like, yes, you got it.
100%.
Exactly what the point is.
Wow.
That's kind of like the background of it. This was his most commercially successful album. We don't really know how well this new album is going to do, but it doesn't necessarily have the streams or kind of the hype around it that this album felt like it did when it came out.
And would you say the general consensus like agrees with your view that it's not as good as The Human Connection?
No, not on Rate Your Music, at least. That's his newest album, Father Figure, is the highest rated album he has. So
that's interesting.
Who knows? That's kind of up to the people to decide. I do like this one the best. I think this is the most cohesive body of work that he's done.
Right.
Although I think Glory Sound Prep has 2 songs I would consider higher. But with that, let's move into the first song, which is He Is the Same. This one has some background vocals by Audra May, who he collaborated with on a song on a previous mixtape / album. It's kind of up to whoever to decide if it's a mixtape or an album. This song was written by John Bellion and OG Volta, which is a production duo consisting of Raul Cubina and Mark Williams. And this was produced by John Bellion, Mark Williams, and Volta, with additional production by Mylan Hade. And I want to say something about OG Volta real quick. They are potentially the biggest producers on the planet at this point. They worked with Kanye West. Wow. Even on some of his pre-Nazi music when he was experimenting with being insane.
Yep.
Publicly insane. And they just produced Playboi Carti's album, which I talked about on this podcast as being terrible.
Oh gosh.
I do think that they're very talented producers, and that was not their reason the album was terrible. But as far as I can tell, this is kind of how they started working together, because a lot of the times Mark Williams is credited separately as his own person. I don't know if Mark Williams has more credits at this point or what, but Volta is definitely not as like involved, and it almost seems like he was kind of a like studio engineer, like somebody who was not as known yet. From this album on, it seemed like they worked together a lot, and then they also started this production duo and songwriting duo. I have a few things to say about this song. The first one is 24 years old. I have listened to this song since it came out in 2016, and I have never realized that that is the age I'm turning in a few months.
Oh gosh, that's right.
And you will be turning that age towards the end of the year.
In November. I didn't even think about that at all, to be honest.
I don't really know his age off the top of my head, but I'm assuming that the 24 years old is probably when the song was written in like 2015. You may have noticed something else about this song. There's beatboxing. He likes to do that. That's always been a big part of his stuff. There's making of like mini documentary things on his YouTube of making of songs. I used to watch those all the time to like learn about production when I was in high school.
Right.
But it's very interesting to see kind of the process that he uses, because it's similar to mine, but it's also different. And I haven't watched a lot of these in probably 8 or 9 years. And now having so much more experience writing music, I'm kind of going back to it and I'm like, wow, I actually do a lot of this stuff without realizing it, you know, that I didn't know when I was just starting out. This is the first song that has his like signature beats on it. It's very like disjointed. It's very hip hop influenced, like 90s, 2000s hip hop. Right. That's always been like a staple of his music, but we get much more like lush sounds in this compared to previous albums / mixtapes. The end of this song, so it's like kind of divided into two, in my opinion. It's got like the main part of the song and then the end part where it's just kind of like floating around, which also kind of happens later in Weight of the World.
Yeah. And I kind of feel like you could see that being one of his signatures in his music, like that kind of feeling of floating.
Now, I have the question, which is going to determine how I guess, talk about and think about you and context with this album. What did you think about this song?
So,
I have a prediction in my head.
Oh, I kind of want to hear your prediction first.
I think you're going to say, it's pretty good, but it's not for me, 2.5.
Okay, so I'm pretty mixed on the song. I do want to say I noted the beatboxing, and I thought the opening was interesting. I'm not the biggest fan of like the stripped back style of it, though, like the opening.
Yeah.
Because I think I realized while I was listening to this that I like the melodic aspect of a song, you know, like the music in the background. That being said, like when the music starts to kind of come into the background, I did really like that. I think ultimately, like because of that and because I liked the choruses but didn't particularly like the verses, I ended up being pretty mixed on this song. And because of that, I kept going back and forth between two different scores, which are close to the one you said, but aren't the one you said. And I eventually did land on a 3, but it was between a 3 and a 3.5.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So you got very close.
Nice. Yeah, I think that this song is best thought of as an intro to the album and not so much like its own song.
Yeah, I feel like that.
I feel like this album is very, I don't know if I want to say well thought out, because I don't want to like put my own like, I guess, feelings towards it, but it feels like the track list, there's a lot of care, I guess, paid attention to the track list and the order of like the ideas presented in the songs. And I feel like this one has to be the intro, and then obviously Hand of God outro in parentheses has to be the outro, because it is literally the outro.
Let's make that the first song.
Right,
Switch
exactly.
things up, yeah.
But I feel like this is a song that kind of both benefits and like doesn't, because it's the first song. Like it kind of has to exist as the first song and nothing more.
Yeah.
But this one is a 4 for me.
Very, very high.
Yes. We will talk more about some of the themes present as we get to those songs. Yeah. So don't worry.
I'm very intrigued to see like how much, if we do, like how much we diverge
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes me a little worried because I feel like you're going to dislike it more as it goes on.
Don't worry. Like, I don't hate any song on this album.
Okay.
So
is this your least favorite
good.
song?
No.
Okay. I know which one it's going to be. And I'm going to say it right now, and you're not allowed to react in any way. It's fashion.
All right.
Moving on to track number 2.
I'm not saying nothing.
Track number 2, 80s films. This one is written by Busby, John Bellion, and Mark Williams. Produced by John Bellion, Mark Williams, and Busby, with additional production by Ross Golan. Ross Golan, it was on Dangerous Woman. So that's right. A connection we have. And I swear to God that Busby was on one of the songs earlier, and I don't know if I can look it up fast enough while you're talking to like make that full connection.
Do you want me to just talk about random stuff while you Google it?
I mean, I am going to ask you, well, I don't want to Google all of our albums, but I am going to ask you what you thought of this song, and that'll give me some time to look it up.
I felt like there was this deconstructed feeling to the song. Like the music felt kind of deconstructed. I don't know if that makes any sense, but that's just the feeling I got. And even though I did just say like, oh, I prefer when, when songs have a more typical like musical whatever, I did prefer that. Like that made me like this song more than He Is the Same. That being said, I don't think the choruses kind of worked for me as well as they did in He Is the Same. So that did kind of level it out. So this song is also a 3 for me. But I do think that it does in general work better for me than He Is the Same, even though they do have the same scores.
Take me back to 9th grade shit. We have not covered a song that Busby's worked on based on my looking.
I feel like 50% of this episode is you going to be quoting things from this album.
No, I only have a few. That was one of them.
I wish there was more.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I can think of some off the top of my head. Wanted to shout out The Breakfast Club, Cyndi Lauper,
Hell yeah.
because those are both on the bridge of the song, and Back to the Future.
Oh gosh, I didn't even notice that.
You didn't notice the bridge with the 80s references?
No, but I didn't know. I noticed that, but I didn't notice that Back to the Future was one of the references.
Oh yeah, he says "Take me back into the future" at the end as it goes into like the guitar solo, which I very much like the guitar solo.
Right.
I feel like this song for me is the perfect length. It doesn't like overstay its welcome. This song pissed me off so much when I was younger because I just was like, I don't like it. The chorus is too simple. It doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
And now it's one of my favorites from the album. It is also a 4, so I'll give you that.
That's interesting.
Right off the bat.
Would you say that's kind of your ceiling with this album? A 4?
Well, you'll see later.
All right.
And I have something to say about one of my scores specifically.
I'm very intrigued
based on some new information I have learned.
Oh gosh, that sounds ominous, to be honest.
Yeah. I think this song has kind of an 80s vibe, but not really, because it's more of his like style with the drums and the like way it is.
And that honestly, like that surprised me because when I saw the title, I was expecting a very 80s vibe, but it isn't really there.
I think this song sounds like Warm Summer Nights, which is why I put it in my Warm Summer Nights playlist.
I could see that, yeah.
So, yeah, this is a 4. I like this one. 3 for you.
3 for me.
That moves us on to track 3, All Time Low. This is written by John Bellion, OG Volta, and Travis Mendez. Produced by John Bellion and additional production by OG Volta. This samples a scream from The Way You Make Me Feel by Michael Jackson.
Oh.
It's the ow in like that's part of the beat.
Yeah.
That's apparently a Michael Jackson sample.
Like the distorted part in this song or no?
No, not like the low voice thing.
Oh, okay.
It's like part of the beat. It's on like one of the snare hits. There's like an ow. He says lie, lie, lie in it, which is an interpolation of The Boxer by Simon and Garfunkel. And then he also uses a word.
I did want to say lie, 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 lie is also what 50-year-old Armenian men say when they don't know the words to a song. They just say lie, 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 lie.
Oh, interesting. That's good to know.
I don't know why. Anyway, back to the song.
Cultural.
Back to the song.
And then there's also a word in this song in the first verse that you may have noticed. That word is masturbate.
Yep.
And it
doesn't that just take you back to high school?
Well, it's a kind of an interpolation, but it's also like paying homage to Billy Joel, he said.
Oh.
Because there's a Billy Joel song where he says that, and in the
really?
little document. Yeah, in the documentary thing, the making of, John Bellion's like, I remember when I first heard that record and I couldn't believe that he said the word masturbate in a song. So I want to put it in a song. And then he did. And it also reminds me of Big Sean. Shout out Big Sean, rapper from Detroit. In most of his songs that I really like by him, there will be one line that's just like, why did you say that? And to me, that's this line of this song. It's like, I didn't need to know that, you know?
Ain't that just fun?
I will say I'm not a prude. Just sometimes it's kind of like, okay. Anyway,
you're gonna have to prove that you're not a prude by like at some point being like, oh, I like when they said like sex or something like that. Or,
we'll get there at some point probably. I mean, hook up in the back seat of my car while my best friend. I can't even like think of the lyric right now for some reason. But anyway, that's in 80s films, and I like that. True. So there you go, proof.
That is very true.
This song peaked at number 16 on the Hot 100. And I do remember hearing it on the radio a few times. They would replace masturbate with the word concentrate from the second verse, which I almost like better.
Yeah, I do.
You're the reason that I just can't concentrate.
I do feel like it fits better, even though I do find the original lyric to be really funny and
insane. And it's like, the fact that he put that in a song and has 700 million streams, that's pretty cool. I will say.
It's also interesting that the lyric is that he can't masturbate instead of like, you're the reason that I do masturbate.
Well, that is the lyric.
Oh, I thought that I can't masturbate.
No, you're the reason I'm
mixed it
alone
up
because they broke up.
Yeah, okay.
So now he's jerking off at home.
I mixed it up. This episode is gonna have the most like mentions of that word ever.
I believe so. Yeah. Well, we mentioned it in Mulholland Drive very briefly. I remember because that was our first episode, and when I was editing it, I was like, "This is going to be interesting." It was our first episode.
Oh yeah. I'm surprised we didn't mention it in like Superbad or something like that. To be honest,
that's true. Yeah, we. Like editing Superbad, I was like, wow, we actually kept it like pretty clean.
It was very tame.
It was weird. Anyway, this song took like over a year from its re-release to like really get going. Like I said, I heard this on the radio in 2017. I remember in 2017, that was the other thing I forgot to mention. In 2017, they released Overwhelming as the fifth and final single from the album. It was just pushed to radio, basically. But it was pushed to radio because All Time Low was doing so well, and they were like, we need a follow-up.
Right.
So that was April of 2017. So at that point, All Time Low was still doing something on the radio. I don't know like the whole timeline of all of it, but
I mean, a year is
good enough.
A pretty long period. So yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah, and to think the original version of the song came out in 2015. So it's kind of like, you know, we're at 2 years at this point of it being out in the public.
Yeah.
It's a sleeper hit.
Exactly.
As they say. This was the first song I heard by him. It was in one of the like upcoming pop songs. I don't remember what it used to be called. It was like Pop Rising or something like that by Spotify. And it was like curated by editors to say like, this is the stuff that's going to be on today's top hits in like 3 months. I remember hearing it on there and I was like, this is really cool. I've never heard anything like this. And then he also mentions in the making of documentary that it has a Jay Dilla style swing. Jay Dilla is a producer, hip hop producer from the 90s and 2000s who has this kind of like drum style. So that's the other thing. He said like a Jay Dilla song with pop lyrics over it. So that describes the style, I think, pretty well. And then I have a kind of lyric before you say your piece, which is Baku Bop Dum Dum. That's just the beginning of this song.
This is the song that keeps on giving.
Yes, it really is. What did you think of this one?
Firstly, can I just say that it's ironic that our Superbad episode was so clean, but then in the episode where we're covering Ratatouille, an animated film, it's the dirtiest episode we've ever done.
Disney Pixar.
Exactly.
Sorry about that, guys. I don't know if it's the dirtiest episode we've ever done, but
I mean, we did say masturbation.
We haven't said fuck
like
too many. We didn't say fuck too many times yet.
There's still time, Brandon.
Yeah,
there's still time.
I'm going to have to work in a few every now and then.
Exactly. Every other sentence. But okay, to get to the song, it was fine. To be honest, the chorus didn't really work for me, especially with like those distorted kind of punches in there like that, you know, the voice. That really kind of made me dislike the song. And overall, it just didn't really work for me. I will say the title is ironic that it's all-time low because it's like one of the all-time low scores on this album of a 2.5.
Okay.
Yeah. I did not connect with the song. Wow.
That's fair.
Our thing is getting wider. I will say
that's all right.
This is the lowest I will go. I can't say if this is my least favorite song because it shares that score with one other song. Spoiler alert.
It's Fashion. Don't say anything.
I won't say anything, but I will say that I can't I didn't consciously decide between those two songs, like which one I like less.
Yeah.
So I don't know which one is my least favorite, but this is.
Don't worry, it's coming up in 2 songs, so we'll get to it. And I'm just banking on that being your least favorite.
If you're right, you can gloat about it forever. If you're wrong, then I don't know, but they'll be interesting.
Okay, don't worry. I have another one that it could be after that.
Can I hear which other one it could be after that?
No, we'll get to it after it's not Fashion, if it isn't Fashion.
All right.
The next song is New York Soul, Part 2. There's a Part 1, don't worry. Part 1 is a slow piano ballad about how he misses his family because he's touring. Right. And this song is a rap song about how he's basically the coolest person ever from New York. So, very different vibes. This one features uncredited vocals by Alec Benjamin, who sings the chorus. Did you notice that there was a different voice?
Honestly, I did not notice that. And I know who Alec Benjamin is. I've heard Alec Benjamin's music.
Whoa. Yeah, what? You know who that is? Why?
Yeah, well, I feel like some of his music popped up in when you have when you allow Spotify to recommend you songs within your own playlists.
Yeah.
I did that and one of his songs popped up.
Interesting.
I think it was Let Me Down Slowly, which I know is his biggest song.
Yeah, that makes sense. This was before he had released much music publicly. So I did not know who he was at this point. This song is written by Alec Benjamin, John Bellion, Mark Williams, Mylon Hayde, and Stephen Hayworth Miller, which I will get to in a second. Produced by John Bellion, Mark Williams, and Mylon Hayde. It samples Space Intro by the Steve Miller Band. One thing before I move on to Steve Miller Band is I did not know that Alec Benjamin sang this song for about a year. I thought it was John Bellion using vocal manipulation because their voices sound pretty similar sometimes.
They do. I did not notice it.
Now that I know they're two different people, it's oh my God, I can't believe I ever thought that was. But I literally did for a year think that Alec Benjamin or that John Bellion was singing the chorus. So I wanted to see if you did as well.
Right.
Now, Steve Miller. Milwaukee legend, Steve Miller. Shout out Wisconsin.
Oh, yeah.
He is from here. This is a song that he made that's an intro, space intro, and it is used in the transition part into the third verse. It makes up the background noises while there's the chords going on before he gets into the third verse where he's screaming more. 3 rap verses from John Bellion. Did you think he could rap?
I mean, I feel like in the previous songs, you maybe got a little hint that he can. I would say it works.
Okay.
In my opinion.
Nice.
Maybe isn't what you would expect when you hear rap, but it still works, I think.
Yeah, it's more of a classic style.
Yeah.
I really like the beat in the first half of the song.
Mm-hmm.
The third verse is good, but it's not my favorite. I gave this song a 4 overall because I do think it's fun. And when I first heard this album, I was like, oh my God, he can rap. Because I didn't know any of his previous music. I had discovered him about a month earlier.
Yeah.
And then the album came out and I listened to it and I was like, oh, interesting. I didn't know if it was him rapping at first as well until the third verse.
Could be Alec Benjamin.
Exactly. It could be Alec Benjamin. What did you think of this song overall?
Well, I completely agree that the beat is really, really excellent. Especially the bass. I feel like it's really, really crisp in the song, which I liked. And I did prefer it to the previous songs. I just feel like at some point it did kind of get repetitive, which is, I guess, kind of what you were talking about with the third verse, where it's not as strong. Ended up kind of settling at 3. I feel like maybe if it had been, a little shorter, if the third verse hadn't been there, it would be higher, like a 3.5. So, yeah.
Now we move on to your maybe least favorite song, Fashion. Written by John Bellion and Stephen Macchio. Produced by Stephen Macchio. This is the only song that John Bellion did not have any role in producing.
Right.
Stephen Macchio is a Canadian composer, pianist, and arranger. He has also done some film scores that I've heard a few of. I could not tell you any of the films he's done, but he is more a piano guy than a pop music guy.
Yeah. Can I ask, any relation to Ralph Macchio of Karate Kid fame?
Not that I know of, and I believe it's different spellings.
Okay. Gotcha.
Is he Canadian?
Honestly, he might be.
Okay. This guy is Moccio. So I think that's different spelling.
Yeah, because I think it's Macchio or something for Ralph Macchio.
Something like that. I thought there was an H in there.
Yeah.
I do have 2 things to say about this song. Might be gold, but that shit's still a shame. And maybe my favorite line from the whole album. I hit him with the boots in July, bitch, I don't need snow. I have quoted that for years.
That should be your just your caption for anything.
Yeah, I'm going to start every time I post on Instagram, I hit him with the boots in July,
Exactly.
bitch, I don't need snow.
No context needed. That's all you need.
And I like that line, which you would assume would be rapped, is actually sung over a nice, like, sad piano and cello.
Yeah. I feel like that fits funny. His style, though, like, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
Absolutely. What did you think about this song? Is it your least favorite?
So let's get into my least favorite song, i.e. the song that I actually preferred to all the previous songs.
I was wondering if that was going to happen.
Yeah, so I actually did like this song. It's a 3.5 for me. Particularly the ending, that was my favorite part.
Yeah.
I thought it was like what he did with the ending was very interesting and it added to the song. I think in some ways it kind of feels like a more typical pop song, which is maybe why I liked it more.
It does. It's like a ballad.
Yeah. And yeah, I gave it a 3.5. I do want to ask, why did you choose this song as the one you thought I would hate?
Because for a long time, this was my favorite song on the album.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a good way of finding out which song I will probably hate.
It is sitting at a 4.5 right now,
nice.
But I may move it up to a 5 because I don't know if there's anything really wrong with this song. I like it from start to finish. It's super fun.
Oh, yeah.
It's very interesting.
It's
different.
We are kind of like keeping our scores like in the same
aligned.
Yeah, aligned, which is fun.
Okay, so now that this isn't your least favorite song, I think your new least favorite song is going to be actually I don't know which one to choose.
You're just like all of them.
I'm gonna do Weight of the World as your new least favorite.
We'll see.
But before we get to that, we have to get to number 6. And before we get to that, I want to ask you one other thing. When you were listening to Fashion, did you hear differences with the other song? I mean, obviously, like there are differences with the other songs, but did you think of it as like kind of separate?
I mean, I don't feel like I really thought of it as separate.
Okay.
Probably because, I did just sit down and listen to the album, in one go. I feel like because of that, I never really think about any song as separate from the album I'm listening to, unless it just really sounds out of place. And I feel like you could maybe say, like, you could see how this one could sound out of place in this album, but I don't think it sounds like that out of place that it would make me think, oh, this doesn't fit.
Yeah. Before I knew this had a different producer, I was just like, there's piano in it. It's very different than the other songs. So I just always associated this one as being like a different vibe. And then I learned it was a different producer.
It's all the piano.
Yes. I love the piano. So, it works well for me.
That's your instrument. That's right.
Exactly. Track number 6. Now, for real this time. Maybe I Don't Know. Written by Busby, Fraser T. Smith, John Bellion, and O.G. Volta. Produced by John Bellion, O.G. Volta, and Fraser T. Smith, with additional production by Busby. This song I used to like a lot more, and this is the perfect song for me to talk about the problems I have sometimes with him.
Oh, gosh.
There is too much Jesus sometimes.
Yeah.
If I want to listen to Christian music, I'm going to listen to Christian music. I don't want it in my secular music. I don't know if any of this other stuff is secular, but religion is a complicated subject for me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not religious. I've grown up in a very conservative religious place of the country. I'm now back in that conservative and religious place.
Going back into the womb.
Yeah, exactly. I am now kind of facing a lot of these people who use their religion as a way to hate others. And I've never really been a fan of that. So a lot of like religion stuff, especially when it gets really preachy, because I dealt with that a lot as a kid, especially being homeschooled. I heard a lot of people telling me all the time, you need to go to church, you need to accept Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, or you are going to hell and you're a bad person. And I don't like when people preach to me. So this song, I think, is musically really good. I think there's a lot of great lyrics. It is still a 3.5, but it gets a little bit too preachy for me sometimes.
That's interesting. I definitely noticed the the references to religion and the preachiness. Interestingly enough, though, I feel like I didn't notice it in specific songs as much as I noticed it over the whole album, even though like it obviously comes from specific songs. So it's interesting, like none of my notes mention that because I feel like I didn't really, like it. I obviously noticed it, but I noticed it very peripherally or in the back of my head or something like that. But now that you mentioned that, I'm like, oh yeah, this song did have a lot of those elements.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's an interesting, I don't know. I agree with what you said about preachy religious music. That's kind of passed as secular music. So yeah, that's, I don't know. I feel like you've seen a lot of artists kind of fall down that rabbit hole. Like certainly Kanye, but obviously there's a lot more to that in his case. But you have like actors like Chris Pratt putting out like religious ads, and I never really liked when like people use like their art or their celebrity to push that. Like obviously, like if that's part of your life, great, but
yeah, it doesn't mean it has to be part of mine.
Exactly.
For me to be a fan of you.
Yeah.
And that is kind of the reason I did not like this newest album. There are many songs where he goes straight into "Thank you, Jesus, for my sons" and stuff like that. And like it gets really, really like obvious.
Yeah.
And it just, I can't deal with that. It's just, that's not something that I want to listen to.
Yeah.
So that was really hard for me to get through like the latter half of the album, because I was really like, there's some good stuff here, but then it just goes into like too much religion, and I just can't, personally cannot do that. It gets
overshadowed kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting because
don't worry, it'll come back up though.
For sure. I mean, like I said, I didn't really have anything about that in my notes, but it is definitely there. This song was a 3.5 for me too, so we're actually in agreement. In parts because I feel like even though it did have those religious elements, it also kind of reminded me of pop songs from the mid 2010s, which I mean makes sense because this is 2016. Yeah. But it feels like the kind of mix of indie and pop that you would find on YouTube.
Yes.
In that time period, which I think made me like it.
I agree, because I think the verses are pretty good in this song, which is always the reason that I've liked it. Is I think the verses are really strong, but then it just kind of goes into a little bit too much religion for me.
It's too obvious. There's a way of doing it where it's not obvious, and that way if you're not interested in that stuff, you don't have to like pay attention to it, I guess you could say.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which we will talk about later in a song coming up, which I have something to say about. Track number 7, before we get there, is the anti-religion song. It's "Woke the Fuck Up," which is what I am. I'm woke the fuck up. This song,
that's what we are.
has the F word in it, so now we get to say it, continuing the trend of the dirtiest episode that we've done.
Oh, I'm sorry, Pixar.
This one is written by John Bellion, Mark Williams, Mylon Hayde, and Rob Knox. Produced by John Bellion and Rob Knox, with additional production by Mark Williams and Mylon Hayde. This is the most old sounding production that he has on any of the songs on this album. It sounds like a lot of his earlier stuff, and I really enjoy it. Think this is a great pop song. It's got a lot of fun parts to it, and it's quirky. This is a 4.5.
Oh, wow.
Do you hate this? You're giving me a look like you hate it.
So, even though I agree with the title, and I am also woke and fucked up,
woke the fuck up, yeah. Woke and fucked
up. Why
not?
This was the other 2.5 for me.
Damn.
Yeah, it didn't.
I should have guessed that.
You should have. Honestly, I'm surprised you didn't, considering you gave this a 4.5. Honestly, this song wasn't very pleasant to me in the sense that, like, I didn't really like listening to it. I feel like, well,
that's a great sentence.
Yeah. What can I say?
This song wasn't pleasant for me in the fact that I didn't like listening to it. It's a work of art there.
Work of art.
You should lower it. You should make it a 2 then, if you didn't like listening to it.
I mean, the thing is, I didn't hate it. I just think that there are a lot of elements that I didn't like, and those are elements that I feel like on this podcast I have had a track record of not liking, like distortion,
weird sounds and going on, things going on, distortion, like kind of wild swings in dynamics.
I also feel like maybe there's a little bit of techno in this in this song.
I don't know what's in this.
That's kind of the impression I got, and I kind of had an unfortunate experience with techno in high school, where like this person sitting next to me forced me to listen to the really bad techno music. So ever since then, I kind of feel like I really dislike techno, even though I've barely listened to any of it. So I think that also kind of made me dislike it even more.
And when David says techno, that is not the genre techno. That I believe that refers to electronic music.
Because I don't know anything about music, so I use whatever terms I can get.
Techno, I will say, as a genre, is really bad, though. It's just different than what you're describing. Right. But it is also bad. So,
well, there we go.
In my opinion,
it still works.
It still works. Yeah.
But yeah, this is a 2.5. Honestly, if I had to choose one, I might choose this as my least favorite song. So
that's fair. Yeah. I respect that.
It is what it is. And hey, the equilibrium has been like set back up after we agreed on the last song.
Yes, exactly. Now we're split again.
Yeah, exactly.
Number 8 is Overwhelming. This was a single written by Johnny Simpson, John Bellion, OG Volta, produced by John Bellion and Mark Williams, with additional production by Johnny Simpson and Volta. Where the last one was the most production-wise like his older stuff, this one is lyrically the most like his older stuff. It's cheeky, it's fun, it's not taking itself too seriously. It's just like enjoyable pop music, in my opinion. And I think the bridge is really fun on this song. This one is a 4 for me.
I agree. I did want to say reference to Top Gun Maverick, not the film, because that obviously hadn't come out like until later, but like the character Maverick in the film. And I thought it was fun. I literally wrote, honestly, not much to say. Really solid music. I gave it a 3.
Nice. Yeah. That's fair.
For me, a score of 3 is like, this is solid. It's fine. It's nothing special. That's kind of my score of a 3.
I feel like usually 3 would be a little bit lower, but I'm not taking issue with it at all.
We'll see. Maybe I'll change it.
We're in alignment.
That's true. We got 2.5. We got to keep the equilibrium.
We're there. This one is where we throw it off. Number 9, Weight of the World. Yes, this does follow track 9 theory. Just getting that out of the way. Yep. This features Black Keys, written by Chris DiStefano, Illmind, John Bellion, and Mark Williams, produced by John Bellion, Chris DiStefano, and Illmind, with additional production by OG Volta. I said, this song has crazy production. It exists as a song, and then there's the last part of it, which John said he sent to Illmind and said, flip this like it was a sample from like the 70s or 80s, and then make it into a beat. And then he had his friend Black Keys rap over it, who now goes by B Keys. Don't know why, but shout out to him. This song is a 5, but it may go down to a 4.5 because I just learned it's about God.
Oh gosh, it's back again.
I always thought this song was about a woman.
I mean, in some ways, God is like a woman. In some ways, he's like a man.
Wow, Ariana Grande.
I mean, is God?
Yeah. In my mind, this was always a kind of a love song for a woman, not really a love song for God. Yeah. And I do think that the verse at the end goes insane and the production is insane, that I just love listening to it. And it was one of the most unexpected things about listening to this album, because we already had the rap song, which I was like, whoa, that's crazy. Yeah. And then all of a sudden there's just another guy rapping at the end of this song on a crazy beat.
It's surprising.
That like sounds nothing like anything else. So this one is going to stay a 5 for now. And I do think it probably is my favorite song because it's the one that is the most memorable to me. Yeah. And it's the one where it's like reserved for special occasions where it's like, wow, I want to hear somebody go crazy over a beat.
Oh yeah, you know, for sure. I got to say, I started the song and I was like, wow, this is really good. And then I continue listening to it and I was like, wow, this is actually a really beautiful song. And I also didn't like notice any God references until you said that there were those references in it. And as I was getting near the end, I was like, this is the best song on the whole album. And I gave it a 4. And then the last part of the song hit. And I just really didn't like it. So that brought it down to a 3.5. That being said, it's still my favorite song.
Oh, okay.
I actually really like the song, except for the ending.
I thought this was going to be your least favorite because of the rap.
Yeah. I still didn't really like I did not like the rap. I feel like it doesn't mesh with the rest of the song. Like, I feel like if the rap was a separate song, that it would work a lot better for me than it does as part of the song. Because it just feels like, I don't know, it doesn't feel like a natural part of the song to me. But that being said, I think the part before it is so strong that I still really like it. So yeah.
Do you like the transition part going into the rap?
To be honest, I don't remember.
Where like it kind of goes minor and then it's, I don't hold the weight in the background. I really love that part, like setting up into the rap.
I remember liking that part. I feel like I don't remember it that well because I did kind of focus on the rap when that kicked in. Like that overshadowed, the bridge to the rap. But I remember liking that part. So
nice. We have the same favorite song on this album. Yeah. It's only happened like once or twice before.
It's pretty rare. And it is track number 9, I will say. So
yeah, it is.
There we go.
Moves us on to track number 10, The Good in Me, which has backing vocals from Kimberly Perry of the band Perry, who you've never heard of, but some of our listeners may. This one was written by John Bellion, Kimberly Perry, and Mark Williams, produced by John Bellion with additional production by OG Volta. I wrote only one thing. I like the production and I like the pre-chorus. This one is a 5 for me.
Oh, wow.
Didn't even like think about it really. I was just kind of like, this is really good and I have no problems with it. Like, I just really like the way it sounds and I think it's super interesting.
That's fun. I also only wrote one thing. I wrote, this is fine, and I gave it a 3. I didn't have anything to say about this song, to be honest.
Yeah, there's always one of those on the album, and it's usually pretty good, in my opinion.
It's fine.
Number 11 is Morning in America. This is written by Ian Kirkpatrick, Jason Evigan, John Bellion, Sam Martin, and Sean Douglas. Produced by Ian Kirkpatrick, Jason Evigan, and John Bellion with additional production by OG Volta. This song was given to John Bellion. It was written by the other guys and then given to him. Right. I've always thought that this song and Fashion feel different from the rest of the album. And
I agree with that.
Also, I learned that Morning in America was the campaign slogan of Ronald Reagan. So it's probably written as like a kind of like a, this is 2016. Yeah. So, things were happening politically. But I think this is good. I didn't like this song when I first heard it, but now I give it a 4 because I think it is actually really fun. It is just different from the rest of it, but it still fits into the like theme and message of the album.
I agree. In some ways, it felt like the opening song of a musical to me. Weirdly enough,
I 100% agree with you,
and I feel
absolutely.
I feel like that's what kind of makes it feel different to the rest of the album. And this is the song where I really noticed, like, oh yeah, this feels very different. I did want to say, hearing SAT gave me like PTSD to high school.
Yeah,
and I was.
You took the SAT?
Yeah,
I took the ACT.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I don't know both bases. Why. Yeah, I thought like SAT was more popular in the Midwest, but I guess the ACT is the one that's more popular here.
Does it even matter, to be honest?
No. Do you remember what you scored? Because I don't remember
what I scored. I feel like I tried to blot that out of my brain as fast as I could.
Yeah.
And then I went to...
It's good enough to get a college degree,
that's right.
though. So.
Good enough to go to community college and then CSUN after. So what can I say?
Exactly.
But I thought this was fun. I really enjoyed the song. I thought the vocal bridge was really interesting. This is a 3.5 for me. In some ways, I prefer it to Weight of the World. To me, it's more re-listenable. Maybe because I didn't like the end of Weight of the World. That might be why. But this is my second favorite song, pretty much, after Weight of the World. And in some ways, it is my favorite. Even though I would say ultimately Weight of the World is my favorite from the album. But yeah, nice. I really like the song. It worked for me. Maybe I just like musicals. What can I say?
Yeah, I was curious about that because this also is not like a style that I usually like. Like I don't really like musical music that much, but it just clicked in my head one day and I was like, wait, this is actually really fun. It's like very story like focused.
I'm very intrigued to see what you think of whatever musical we cover first on the podcast.
Yeah, it'll probably be a low score.
We'll see.
I do want to say I'm not spoiling anything, but there is an episode that we recently planned out. I added an album to a movie. Ooh. And this may be the lowest scores on both music and movie that we ever do. And I think you're going to like both of them.
I'm so intrigued.
I'm just throwing that out there. This is months down the line, so don't get your hopes up yet, everybody.
You guys gotta wait pretty much.
There's one that is going to be, you are going to be surprised at how much I hate this music, I think.
Now I want to hear what it is.
You'll have to wait.
Gosh. All right. I'll wait.
Track number 12, I, Robot, written and produced by John Bellion, Mark Williams, and Mylon Hayde. Used to be my favorite on the album.
Oh.
Now it's the one that I feel like is the most forgettable. Besides maybe I Don't Know is probably my least favorite. It's a 3.5. Right. And honestly, it can get on my nerves sometimes a little bit.
Yeah, I get that.
That's basically all I have to say about it.
Yeah, literally all I wrote down is there are some interesting elements, but ultimately nothing special. I felt like it was just a song. It's a 3 for me.
I like the production on it, though. I
think there are interesting things going on. I feel just like ultimately it just ends up kind of being like, it's fine for me.
Yeah.
So
track number 13, we got 2 left. This is Guillotine, featuring Travis Mendez, written by John Bellion, OG Volta, and Travis Mendez, produced by John Bellion and OG Volta. This, to me, is a timeless pop song, and I think this is one of the most memorable ones and one of my favorites from the album. It's a 4.5,
nice.
And I feel like this is a great like night song.
I agree with that.
I like the lyrics in this one too. I think it's kind of fun and like cutesy in a way. Will still be kind of dark. He described in the like making of documentary as Tim Burton-esque, and I 100% agree with that. I think they totally nailed that on this song.
You can totally see that. And even like in the title, I feel like you can see that. Yeah, I agree. The 2 parts that I particularly liked of the song are the opening riff and the chorus. I feel like those are really, really strong for me.
I was surprised you didn't mention the bass line.
Well, the bass line was also very, very, very good. I guess I just kind of focused on the riff more. But, all those elements did bring it up to a 3.5 for me.
Nice. Yeah. We have one last song, Hand of God, outro. Written by Dan Heath, John Bellion, and OG Volta. Produced by John Bellion and Dan Heath with additional production by OG Volta.
I wonder if the song is religious.
Yeah, I wonder. I do like the production on this one. I actually don't mind the God stuff as much because he would always say, my mother says, or I think that's what he says, your whole life is in the hand of God, which is kind of like, it's more of a saying than like a preaching.
Ironically, it feels less religious than some of the other religious songs, even though the word God is in the title.
Also, a thing that it has going for it is that outro part, the super cinematic end credits kind of thing where you cycle through all of the songs on the album with the gospel choir. I've always loved that. I think that's a great idea. I wanted to do that on my album, not because of this, interestingly enough. I came up with that idea like independently, and then I heard it implemented on this album, and I was like, I'm 100% doing that someday. I feel like this is a great closer to the album. I don't know. I do actually like this song a lot. This is a 4.
Right. I thought that there was a lot of interesting things going on with the production of the song, especially with the ending. How you said that it's kind of like the end credits. Ultimately, for me, it didn't feel like it meshed together very well.
Like the outro and the song part of it?
I feel like just the overall production didn't like mesh together very well, which I don't know how to describe it, but I just feel like it wasn't as cohesive as it could have been. I guess I'll say that.
Okay.
But I still thought it was solid. It is a 3 for me, which is ironic that we're starting the album the same way we ended it, both of us.
Yeah.
So yeah.
It also has the beep at the end to take you back into He Is the Same, which I've always loved. I love a like circular album,
that's true.
Which we've had a few of.
So it's literally perfect with our scores. It circles back.
Yeah. That leaves only one last question, which is, what is your score of the album overall?
Ultimately, just based off the overall scores and obviously my feelings, I did give it a 3. I thought there's a lot of interesting stuff in this album. I don't know if his style is for me, but I do think that some of the songs I did really like, even though ultimately my favorite song had an element in it that I didn't really like at all. But ultimately, there were songs that I enjoyed. At the end of the day, overall, I do kind of feel like this is just not for me. It didn't really click. That being said, I would be interested to listen to his other albums.
We will definitely be doing them because I have a lot of thoughts, both pre and post this album, about his career. And I think he's a very interesting character.
Well, now I got to ask you, what did you give this album?
This is a 4.5. This is one of the first albums I bought digitally.
Right.
Like spent my actual money on, not hard earned because I was a minor who was not working at this point. This album holds a special place in my heart because of the person I was when I first heard it. I don't know that it's aged in the way I thought it did or hoped it did.
Right.
And I don't know that I have like necessarily aged with it in the same way. But there are definitely parts of this that I return to regularly.
Right.
I love Guillotine. I love Fashion. I love Weight of the World and The Good in Me. And most of those songs have like regular rotation in my playlists. But I do think that I have kind of outgrown this album a little bit, but it is still so important to me and such a big part of my life that it deserves to be a 4.5. Right.
Would you say that this album influenced you the way that Bon Iver did, even if it's not to the same level?
I mean, in a way, yes. I hesitate to say the same way. Also, both of those albums were 2016.
Yeah.
2016 was genuinely one of the best years for music in of this century.
Because wasn't Dangerous Woman also 2016?
Yeah. The other year that I would submit is 2019, which I think is truly amazing. And I know we have at least one album from 2019 that we'll be getting to later.
Which I just feel like in general was a peak year for society.
A lot of things.
For culture.
I agree.
I'll say culture. Yeah. Pop culture.
I also wanted to say one thing about kind of the reason that this album started to fall for me. But actually, let me address your question first. Yes, I do think this did have an impact on me, but not musically in the same way. I think it was more of look at how he's doing his own thing. I should do my own thing too. Right. And there have been a few times where I've used his approach of starting with this crazy drum beat to kind of make everything happen around it, Right. So I have a few songs that are like that I really do like, and that kind of have a little bit of his style in them, but definitely a different influence than Bon Iver.
Right.
But the reason that I kind of stopped following him and this album so much is because he performed at Summerfest, which is a music festival in Milwaukee, largest music festival in the world.
Right.
And I saw him live. This was either my second or third year going to Summerfest with a headliner that I cared about, that I wanted to see. And he played roughly 45 minutes set and then had a weird attitude. The crowd sucked. And then he left after 45 minutes. And it was I don't think it was even 11 o'clock yet. And they still had every other artist was still playing for another hour. And I was just kind of really? That's it?
Yeah.
And it just kind of left a sour taste in my mouth. And I get it. I get that performers are human and not every show is going to be the greatest show. Right. But I feel a part of me thinks I spent my time and money to get there. If you didn't want to do the show, you should have just said, I don't want to do the show. And I'd prefer 100%. That, honestly, because it was pretty disappointing.
I think that whenever you are, whenever you engage in something like performing on stage, you are kind of signing a social contract with your audience that they're going to pay money for you to present your best work, the best work that you're able in the moment to give. And obviously that is a lot. And I feel like people are understanding that is, very taxing, but ultimately, you're making the choice to enter that. And if you are experienced like he was at that point, I'm assuming, how hard it is. So if you're going to continue doing it, I feel like it's up to you to bring the best that you can to your fans, essentially. I feel like some people might say, oh, but what about paparazzi? I feel like that's very different because that's you in the outside world when you're not in that social contract.
Yes, right.
That's so in those situations, if a fan comes up to you and asks for a picture, I think it's totally understandable to say no or anything like that. But I feel like it's different when you are on stage performing,
I don't know how much of it was just the crowd being awful because Summerfest is really hit or miss. Everybody drinks like crazy. It's Wisconsin and beer is pretty cheap. Right. And most of the time the admission is super cheap too. It's just the getting there that's expensive and finding a place to stay. That definitely could be part of it. But interestingly enough, he was at that point signed to the same record label as Logic, who's a rapper. And I saw Logic paid money for the amphitheater show. He was co-headlining with Halsey.
Yeah.
And he had this similar attitude of just being y'all suck. And he even said at one point, he walked off stage in the middle of a song and being you guys, this crowd sucks. And it's cool. You're here to perform. We all paid money to see you. Do you want to do the thing you're here for? And I just kind of since then, I haven't bothered to see either Logic or John Bellion in concert because I was just kind of annoyed at that. Yeah. And I was just kind of why? I don't know. It was weird. It was not a good experience.
Yeah, I understand the crowd can suck, but regardless, that doesn't mean that you can just be well, okay, I'm not going to try that. There are people in that crowd that probably still care.
That was unfortunately disappointing, but Yeah, I mean, that's my own personal thing, but I do think the music is still really impactful for me. There's a song off the new album that I think is just as good as his old stuff. I'm like, this is really good. This is going to be something I listen to regularly, even if it's not all the way there. But it's complicated because he's always been very open about his faith as well, which I guess as I've gotten older I've started to have a different approach to it, I guess. But he made this album for a Pixar film he would like to score. So we have an actual Pixar film to talk about now.
With an actual great score.
Michael Giacchino. Right. Shout out.
Our king, my king of soundtracks. Anyway.
Yes. One of them, along with John Williams.
Right. And many, many others.
Howard Shore, probably.
That's right. Howard Shore. I could go on and on, to be honest. But I'll stop myself because we have a rat to talk about. It's Ratatouille time.
We do have a rat.
Before I get started, I just want to throw this out there. This is one of my favorite Pixar films ever. So I'm very excited. That being said, I don't have that much background information just because there isn't that much. But
that means we have more things to talk about that are our own thoughts, I guess.
Exactly. So let's get into it. As usual, I am going to start with the IMDb logline, which is a rat who can cook makes an unusual alliance with a young kitchen worker at a famous Paris restaurant. What do you think about that?
I think that's actually a pretty good logline.
It's pretty good, but I kind of feel like it's a little sparse.
It is sparse, but it feels very Pixar, and it feels like it's been workshopped by the team of 30 Disney lawyers.
That is also true. It does kind of feel like both of those things. Of course, directed and written by Brad Bird from a story.
Shout out.
Hell yeah. The King, Brad Bird. Literally, this man has knocked it out of the park 3 times in a row with The Iron Giant, The Incredibles, and Ratatouille. I don't know how he did that. I did want to say he wrote the script based off a story by Jan Pinkava, Jim Capobianco, and himself. The film was produced by Brad Lewis. The cinematography, which in this case I believe refers more to art direction or something like that, because it's obviously an animated film. That being said, I'm not 100% sure because I don't know how that works at Pixar, but cinematography by Sharon Callahan and Robert Anderson. And the film was edited by Darren T. Holmes, and music, as we obviously said, by Michael Giacchino. That's how you pronounce the last name, right?
I believe so. That's how I've heard it.
Who also incidentally scored The Incredibles too. So he kind of came back for Brad Bird's.
He did Up as well.
I
know that very famously.
Yeah, he's famous for that score, even though I don't think he won an Oscar for it. Anyways, film also stars Patton Oswalt, Lou Romano, Ian Holm, little connection there to Lord of the Rings, Brad Garrett, Peter O'Toole, Janine Garofalo, I believe that's how you pronounce that last name, apologies, Brian Dennehy, and Peter Sohn. Oh, sorry, and Will Arnett. Can't forget Will Arnett, who I did not even realize was in this film. Did you?
Me neither.
Yeah.
I saw his name and I was like, what? Where was he?
He does not sound like himself.
I kind of forgot that Patton Oswalt was Ratatouille.
Yeah, I feel like the Ratatouille voice or the Remy voice kind of lives separately from Patton Oswalt.
Yeah, when I heard it, I was like, oh my God, that's him. I've seen this movie multiple times as a kid.
I feel like every time I watch it, I'm still surprised.
Yeah.
The idea for Ratatouille was initially conceived by Jan Pinkava in 2001, and Bob Peterson, who worked at Pixar, was brought in as a co-director by 2004, and they started working on the story, the characters, stuff like that. And that's very typical for a Pixar film to have more than one director on it.
And to take forever to be made.
Yeah, that's a very, very long process. Ultimately, the process was elongated because the management, they lacked confidence in the way the story was progressing. And so that's when they brought on Brad Bird after Pinkava left Pixar, while Peterson went on to direct Up. Just our little connection to the other movie that Michael Giacchino scored after this one. Brad Bird was obviously very prolific. We mentioned the 2 films he made previously to this, The Iron Giant and The Incredibles. And he liked the story or the idea of a rat cooking. That's what brought him on. Which, I mean, hell yeah.
Nice.
What can I say? I would also be intrigued. And as I said, before Pincava and Jim Capobianco are credited for the story along with Bird because of the work they put in Pincava's case before Bird came on. He did make a lot of changes though. For instance, he came up with the idea to kill off Gusteau, which I don't know how it would have been in the original script if like Gusteau was a person that took Skinner's role, and wanted to like kill the rat or whatever.
Yeah.
Because Bird also made Skinner and Colette more prominent characters in the film. And he also redesigned the rat. He brought in Demi Ducomun, I believe that's how you pronounce her name. Sorry, Demi, who was a rat expert who they dubbed the Rat Lady. Yeah. She brought in her rats so the animals could like study them and draw them. And they made them like less anthropomorphic, which I feel like works pretty well. I feel like the fact that they're more realistic like adds something, I guess.
Yeah.
So I really enjoyed that. Some actors that were considered for Remy include, and I want to know if like you recognize any of these people. It includes Luke Wilson.
Yeah.
Ed Harris.
Sounds familiar.
Bald guy. He plays a lot of army people. He's a really good actor. He would not fit at all, in my opinion. Sam Elliott.
Oh, yeah.
Orlando Bloom, who I know you recognize.
Yep.
Steve Carell. And Alec Baldwin.
I could totally see Steve Carell in that role.
I think he would do great, even though I do think that Patton Oswalt is kind of perfect for this.
I agree.
And they actually found Patton Oswalt for the film after Bird heard him doing stand-up about the menu at Black Angus Steakhouse.
Oh my God.
So it's kind of perfect. What can I say? I did want to mention some of the other actresses that were considered for Colette, because there were actually some pretty big names, even if they weren't that big at the time. But that list included Idina Menzel, Rachel McAdams,
wow,
and Naomi Watts, who we obviously saw in Mulholland Drive.
Interesting.
I thought that was interesting. Yeah, especially Idina Menzel. I think she would have done very well in the role too.
She got her Disney movie.
She got Frozen.
She's good.
She got arguably the biggest Disney movie of the 2010s.
Yeah, the one to cover up Walt Disney's frozen head.
Exactly. Obviously, cooking was important to this story, and they wanted to get it right. They wanted to get a French kitchen as right as they could. And so because of that, Brad Lewis, who was the producer, and a part of the crew actually went to Paris to not only study the kitchen, but also to eat at a bunch of Michelin star restaurants, which...
Imagine that being your job.
I know, right? I would kill for that.
Yeah.
Just go to Paris and eat all day. That sounds perfect.
At Michelin star restaurants too? Oh my God.
I know. I think it was like the top 5 restaurants in Paris.
Damn.
Which, considering like how many top restaurants there are in Paris, that's like the cream of the crop of the whole world or something like that. So that sounds like a dream. Like that was a vacation at that point, to be honest. They also took cooking classes, and a lot of chefs were obviously consulted. The most famous example is Chef Thomas Keller, who I don't know if you know who he is, but he's regarded as like one of the best chefs in the world. He runs the 3 Michelin star restaurant, the French Laundry, which is famous around the world. And he actually allowed Brad Bird to intern at the French Laundry for this film, which I think is fun.
That's cool.
And he was, I'm like, again, something that I would kill to do, just to be able to like see how it works. And it was actually Keller that suggested that they use the fancy confit bialdi variation of the Ratatouille dish for the climax of the film. So like the version you see there is, I guess, one that he brought to their attention. I don't know if he actually if they used his recipe for the film or something like that, but I thought that was fun. Many of the characters were designed under Pincava, and they, I believe, kept most of those designs. As I said, they kind of changed the rats a little bit, but I thought it was interesting that they kept most of his designs for the film, including Anton Ego's kind of vulture-like posture.
Yeah,
which I think is perfect.
It's very Disney villain.
It's very Disney villain, and also his. I don't know if you noticed, but his office is shaped like a coffin.
Yes. Yeah, that was... Yes. I watched this with my dad because he's been just like watching the movies with me now. And and he was like, coffin. And I said, yes.
Yeah. It's perfect. I love that I love that whole scene so much, but the fact that they had those elements in there, I think works very well.
Yeah.
Michael Giacchino was brought on. This was his second soundtrack for Pixar. His first was The Incredibles, also with Brad Bird. And I believe that they've kind of kept working together. I think they have a very collaborative relationship.
Yeah, he's done a bunch of stuff as well, and also non-animated movies. I'm pretty sure he took over some of the Star Wars movies from John Williams.
Yeah, he did. I believe he did Rogue One.
Yeah, he might have done others and Solo, or maybe that was Ludwig Göransson. I don't know. Actually,
I'm not sure. I know Ludwig Göransson did the soundtrack for some of the shows, like he did Mandalorian, stuff like that. But I don't know about Solo, to be honest. But
yeah,
I mean, Gino's they're both fantastic composers. So I'm like, any one of them, you're gonna get a great score.
Exactly. Yeah.
Released June 29th, 2007, when both of us were 6, I believe.
Wait, June what date did you say?
29th.
That's coming up. That might be like when the album comes, or when the episode comes out.
Yeah, so we might have actually lined it up perfectly.
Wow, we did a good job.
We did a great job. It was a big box office success. It made $607 million on a $150 million budget, which honestly surprised me. I did not think that the budget would be that high.
I mean, Pixar is usually pretty high because they like to go all out, and animation costs so much.
That's true. I guess I was just thinking like, 2007 inflation.
That's true. Yeah,
the time between then and now. But I mean, yeah, it makes sense that it was that high. It is Pixar after all. It also obviously received critical acclaim from like everyone, critics and audiences, and is considered one of, if not the best Pixar films ever made. Its Metacritic score, which is a 96, is actually tied with Toy Story for Pixar's highest Metacritic score, which I thought was a fun little...
Yeah.
Which I think is deserving. Although I will say, I think Monsters, Inc. should be up there at that 96 too.
I do love Monsters, Inc. I also think I really like Up. I remember loving that one.
I actually haven't seen Up.
Oh my God, that's another film I've seen that you haven't. That's crazy.
We'll add it to the list for sure.
It's on there. Don't worry. I put all Pixar movies on there.
Oh gosh. All right.
Also, this is our first animated film.
Yep. Yeah.
We didn't talk about that at all. We didn't mention that.
That's true. We forgot, but we were like, it's time. We have to do an animated film at some point.
It is time.
What better film to start off with?
Exactly. And it's also the animation is so good that you forget it's animated sometimes. It's like, this is just, it's incredible to look at.
Especially considering that it's set in Paris, which is both an iconic and beautiful city. I think they pull off the animation of the city really, really well. Like, it looks genuinely beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. That success in its animation translated to the Oscars. It got nominated for Best Original Score, Best Sound Editing, Best Sound Mixing. This was back when there was 2 sound categories. Best Original Screenplay and Best Animated Feature. And it obviously went on to win Best Animated Feature, which I think is very deserved. I don't remember what else was nominated, but whatever else was nominated, it didn't really stand a chance, to be honest. And before we discuss this film, we have to talk about its ripoff / mockbuster. Do you know what these films are, mockbusters?
They're when a studio tries, or like when not necessarily B studio, right? But when somebody else tries to work into the success of the film.
Exactly.
Is it what I think it is?
The film is called Ratatouille.
Oh, okay. That's definitely not what I thought it was.
I haven't seen this myself. I've heard a lot of people talk about it. I believe it's in the So Bad It's Good community. But pretty much it's a 44-minute Brazilian film, obviously released 2007 to kind of get ahead of Ratatouille's release. I want to read the IMDb logline because I think I just got to get it out there. I want to see what you think about this. Marcel Towing, owner of the best restaurant in Rio de Janeiro, must go on missions to steal ingredients from human restaurants to keep his meals the best. That is...
Is he a rat?
He is a rat.
Cool.
I was surprised by how different it was. I thought it would just be like a straight up, it's a rat that wants to cook, and he goes to a restaurant and controls a guy. But I guess it's very different.
Yeah, they probably didn't know what the angle of Ratatouille was, and they were just like, "We got to do something with a rat and food."
Yeah. A rat whose last name is Tuing, so that's where the title of the film comes from.
Yeah.
Ratatouille.
That's insane.
Yeah. I want to watch this film on the podcast at one point. Because why not?
We can do
we'll
it.
See.
We'll do a bonus episode at some point.
I want to hear what you thought, especially knowing that you had seen this film before.
Yes.
What do you think?
May not have grown up watching movies with my family very much. We watched TV, which I've talked about before, but we did watch Pixar because of how good Pixar is.
Yep.
And movies like this would be something that when I was younger, I would say, I want to do that. You know, I didn't have that feeling with movies ever in my life. Whenever I wanted to do something, it was always TV. I was like, I want to make that TV show. I want to write for these characters. I want to write an episode. But this is the kind of thing that makes you say, wow, this is like incredible. I want to do something like this. And I went in knowing that this is good. And I went in with high expectations. And honestly, it was even better than I remembered it being, or better than I thought it was. Like, this is actually like a crazy good film. And I feel weird saying that about Disney because I know everybody likes to hate on Disney, but at the same time, it's Pixar, and Pixar is like the best at what they do for a reason.
And this is also Pixar during their golden era, I would say. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I really don't have any problems with this film. Like, I think it's just story wise, it's super good. It's really solid. It takes a little bit to get going into it in the beginning. I really can't say anything bad about this. Like, I think it's crazy. Also, I was not prepared for the shotgun. I forgot about the shotgun, and I forgot that would be allowed in a Disney movie.
Yeah. Back in the days when you could probably get away with more in a Disney movie than you can now.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, and it was a Pixar movie, so it didn't count or whatever, you know?
I think this is the best, or one of the best examples of a film that you watch and you're like, this is amazing. Then after a period, you're like, oh yeah, that film was good. And then you come back to it and you're like, oh wait, no, this was better than I remember.
It's actually amazing. Yeah, like I thought the first time.
Yes, it actually is amazing. Which is kind of interesting because I feel like the other Pixar films, like Monsters, Inc., for instance, which is one of my favorites, you watch and you're like, this is amazing, and then you remember how amazing it is.
Yes, I agree. That and Toy Story as well. I feel like I just have those in my mind. It's like, these are amazing. But I agree with you that for some reason with Ratatouille, I was kind of like, it's good. And it's like, really no, it really is the same like level of amazing.
Yeah. No, 100%. I personally, I think this is a perfect film. And that's something that I've kind of always considered, even in those moments where I'm like, oh yeah, that was good. Even in those moments I was like, oh yeah, that's a perfect film. It's just not as strong as like Monsters, Inc. And then I come back and I'm like, no, wait, it is as strong as Monsters, Inc. It's like as strong as any of their best films. But yeah, I think across the board, we obviously talked about the animation. The story, I think, the story and the characters, I think, are probably my favorite part, especially Anton Ego. You can't beat Mr. Vulture and like his switch up.
That story, and then the like seeing the childhood influence of it. I was like, this is like maybe the best moment of the entire movie. Like that was incredible. Like I was tearing up at that point.
Yeah. That scene is my favorite scene in the whole film.
Yeah.
Where you see, he like drops the pen and then goes into his memory. And one of my favorite things that if you notice, like in his memory, he's eating the regular version of the ratatouille instead of like the fancy confit whatever, which I think is such a beautiful little note. And kind of speaks to like the idea of like, oh yeah, this is elevated, but it still should be, taking you back to your childhood.
Yeah.
Which to be honest, I feel like a lot of restaurants forget.
Yeah. Food is supposed to be like a journey. And I love the like quote they had in there's so many like great lines in it. The writing is incredible, like always with Pixar. Like the line of anyone can be a cook, but it's not anyone. It's a good cook can come from anywhere. I was like, oh my God, that's the perfect way to like kind of wrap up the film.
Yeah. I think that theme of, first of all, like the theme that your cook, like a great cook can come from anywhere, I think is really beautiful. But also just the idea that people will often take a quote and give it the wrong context and the wrong meaning is, I think, kind of genius in this film. I feel like the strength of this film thematically is in large part thanks to Brad Bird, because I feel like, you watch like The Incredibles, and that film, the themes there are also so strong. Like, he understands how to write theme.
Oh yeah.
And use 100%. It in his films. So I think a large part, like the success of those elements comes from him. I'm not saying like other people didn't obviously have a part in that, but I feel like a lot of that comes from Brad Bird himself.
I think that's a great, like, both him and then like Pixar in general just know like how to do emotions so well that I think that's the reason that like you and I and like millions of other people are so drawn to them, is because they're so good at like having a heart. And that's what I feel like is missing in so many other, like, I wouldn't say this is like a comedy film. There's funny parts to it, but it's like in like animated films in general is like it, and people forget, and I guess movies in general, people forget how important. And to your point
about comedy films, I feel like that's also missing in a lot of comedy films.
Yeah.
That forget to like have something deeper in it rather than just a comedy. But I completely agree. I would say it's even missing in a lot of Pixar's films that are coming out now. Like, obviously it's still there in a lot of films, but I think a reason why a lot of people are saying that they're kind of going through a slump is because that's maybe not as present as much as it used to be. It's not present in every single film.
Interesting. Yeah.
And again, I say that as someone that hasn't seen all the recent films, so I
have
can't
not
say that
seen a lot of the recent ones. I did hear that Inside Out 2 is like generational, like it's on par with a lot of their other greatest films. I haven't seen it though.
I feel like in some ways that could be seen as a comeback film for them. I love that film. I think that film does have that kind of depth and emotion to it that Ratatouille has, or Monsters Inc. or Toy Story, or kind of the films that are seen as their best films. I'm very intrigued to hear what your score is.
All right. Are you ready for this?
I am so ready.
3. No, I'm kidding. It's a 4.5.
Perfect film. It's a 3.
It's a 4.5 because
that's a really great score.
When I think about 5, for me, a 5 is there is nothing I would put above it, pretty much. I think there's another Pixar film I would put above this.
Right.
I'm pretty sure. Maybe 2 even.
Do you want to spoil it, or do
no? Because I may be wrong about what those films are, because I haven't watched them in a long time.
Right.
But I will say that this is on the same level as Call Me by Your Name. I think I absolutely love this. I
completely agree.
In the movie the entire time, and I was expecting this to be a 3.5 or a 4, and a 4.5 going on 5. Like, I like to keep my 5s clean and pristine for the greatest things I've ever seen that have changed my life. And this is really close, but it didn't completely change my life. Although I do think it is amazing. So 4.5.
That's a great score. We finally got back up into the 4.5s for you. Yeah.
And did you give it a 5?
So as I said before, in my opinion, this is a perfect film. I will say, after rewatching it and kind of going back over my other favorite Pixar films, I would have to put Monsters Inc. first, partially because I think it is maybe just a little bit more emotional. And there is, I think, just the fact that I grew up specifically with Monsters Inc. Like, I grew up with all these films, but we had Monsters Inc. on repeat in our house.
That was one of my parents' favorite movies to show us as well. So I know that one inside and out.
And also one of my favorite films to just rewatch.
Yeah.
So because of that, I do feel like Monsters Inc. is maybe just a little bit dearer to me as a film. That being said, it is very, very close. These two films are my 2 favorite Pixar films, even if Monsters Inc. is just a little bit higher. That being said, I still gave Ratatouille a 5. I think it's perfect. So. I still absolutely adore it. And I also I don't have any problem with giving everything a 5. So yeah, you guys know me. I've given 5 to half the films that we've talked about on this podcast.
Which is fair, and you're right to do. I think I've done quite a few 5 albums, so.
Yeah, so there we go. I think it's perfect. What can I say?
I agree with that. This is so much better than I thought it was. I'm glad this is our first animated film because
Me too.
This is great. I mean,
I think we made a good choice. I remember before we filmed that, or before we kind of watched and did all that for this episode, you were like, "Oh yeah, it'll be fine, probably." I don't remember liking it that much, and I was like, "Oh, you're crazy. Just wait." I didn't say just wait, but I was like, we'll
yeah,
see.
you were really pushing hard for this one to be the first animated film, and I'm glad that we did choose this one.
Same here, and I can't wait to do some other Pixar films, including one that you guys now know is my favorite. So there we go.
And that's one of the ones in the running for my favorite as well, I will say.
So there we go.
But we did a Pixar movie and we did a Pixar inspired album.
Pixar themed album.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that this was a pretty good pairing. I don't know about you.
I agree. I think it's also a fun pairing considering that this is our raunchiest episode, I guess you could say.
Yeah, for now.
I mean, you can always get raunchier. What can I say?
Oh yeah, maybe next week we will. I really don't know.
We'll see. I don't even remember what next week's topics are.
Me neither. But I think that's where we wrap up, right?
That's right. Give us a shout out to all your family and friends. Spread the word. Give us a rating. Give us a review on Apple Podcasts.
Maybe don't tell your little cousin to listen to this episode. It is a little bit dirtier than we were planning, but there are other episodes.
Skip to the Ratatouille part for your little cousin. Yeah. And yeah, so if you are interested in just telling us your thoughts, telling us how we can improve, or giving us a lot of praise, because why not? Send us an email at UPC. Yeah, both of us will take it at UPC. To email us at upcpod@gmail.com. I finally got it right.
You got like 3 intros to get it right, and I was really hoping that you would, and you did. You stuck the landing.
I finally did it. Did it. And then I'll probably mess it up next time.
That's okay.
But yeah, follow us on Instagram for updates. You can find our link tree there for all our information.
Yes, and follow us on Letterboxd and Rate Your Music because we post about all kinds of stuff on there. And
that's right.
Yeah, we'll see you next week then.
See you next week.